everyone. This is the Big 12 weekly rankings and matchup shows in which I rank the teams in the Big 12 from 12 to 1 and also highlight the matchups for the week. But before we begin, a mistake that I made last week on our pilot show. Sometimes pilot shows don't go smooth. This case was no different. I did retract it that night on YouTube, but I had to retract it because my schedule said that Texas Tech and Kansas State would not be playing until the week of October 17th. Obviously, that was wrong, and I caught the mistake just a few hours after the broadcast. Of course, they played in Lubbock this past Saturday, and the game was televised on Fox Sports Net, and it was Texas Tech winning the game as I predicted. So, again, I'm sorry that we got the dates mixed up, but again, Texas Tech did beat Kansas State this past week. Initially, my schedule said October 17th. It was wrong, and I'll never be using that schedule again. I've got better sources to go off of this time. So anyway, with that being said, let's go to the rankings. My rankings beginning at number 12 with Iowa State. Look, I know that they played much better this week, and they almost won at Kansas, but there's a fine line between winning and losing, and they lost again. They still have not won a Big 12 game in 2 seasons, so can't move them out of the cellar, not until they win. Number 11, the team that's just barely ranked ahead of them in my poll, Kansas State, who got drilled by Texas Tech and got drilled by a backup quarterback named Stephen Sheffield, who threw for 7 touchdown passes and nearly 500 yards. K-State defense, how does that feel? Number 10, Colorado played tough against Texas for about a half, and then Texas finally pulled away. Good thing, though, for Colorado, Dan Hawkins, the head coach, finally pulled his son, Cody Hawkins, the quarterback. He benched him. About time. What took you so long? At number 9, the Baylor Bears. Baylor, just like Colorado against Texas, played a pretty competitive first half against Oklahoma on the road. That was for a half, and then Oklahoma finally pulled themselves away from the Bears. But I did like Nick Florence, a quarterback for Baylor. The freshman did not play too bad of a game, so at least Baylor fans, you have some good things to look forward to with Nick Florence, now that Robert Griffin doesn't look like he's going to play for the rest of the year because of that ACL. At number 8, I'm dropping Missouri to number 8 because of their choke in the fourth quarter against Nebraska. They got outscored 27-0 in the fourth after leading 12-0 entering the fourth. Blaine Gabbert, the Missouri head coach, might as well call him Blaine Gaggart, thanks to his 2 interceptions that he threw in the fourth. Give credit to Nebraska for the comeback, but blame Missouri as well for letting that game get away from them on national TV at home. At number 7, I go Texas A&M, who played competitive against Oklahoma State, actually led by 8 points in the second quarter, but Oklahoma State's offense just too much for the Aggies, who continue to struggle on the defensive side of the field. But again, the Aggies are getting a little bit better, just not enough to pull off the upset against the Cowboys, who are without at least 2 big stars in that game. At number 6, we're going to go with Texas Tech. Stephen Sheffield, the backup quarterback for the Red Raiders, threw 7 touchdown passes, nearly 500 yards. And now if you're Mike Leach, you have a big decision to make for that game against Nebraska. Do you go with Sheffield or do you go with the starter, Taylor Potts, assuming that he can play? Potts, of course, did not play against the Wildcats because of that concussion he suffered against New Mexico prior. So, big decision that Leach will have to make. And I think some of the players on Texas Tech actually like Sheffield a little bit more, but it's Leach's decision. At number 5, the Kansas Jayhawks, who still have not had an impressive win over a good team this year, and they did not have an impressive win over a bad team last Saturday in Iowa State, but they're still undefeated, still ranked in the top 20. They'll probably win at a bad team at Colorado, but then the schedule gets tougher the second half with games against Oklahoma the following week, plus other matchups against Nebraska, Texas Tech, Texas on the road, and Missouri in Kansas City. So the Jayhawks schedule will be upgraded as the season goes along. Number 4, Oklahoma State, despite not having Des Bryant, who's trying to get reinstated from the NCAA, and Kendall Hunter, who continues to have ankle difficulties, supposedly. I think there's something more to his injury than an ankle, because Oklahoma State simply doesn't talk extensively about injuries. They were without Hunter, they were without Bryant, but no problem. Keith Toston, the backup running back to Hunter, What a game he had, over 100 yards. And Robinson, after a horrible start in the game, got it going as Oklahoma State, with a big second half offensively, pulled away at College Station. Big game coming up for Oklahoma State for homecoming as they will host Missouri Saturday night. At number 3, Oklahoma, defense looked pretty good, especially in the second half. Terrific job by the defensive line, but offense, that's the concern for Oklahoma right now because their running game still isn't in high gear yet, especially in the red zone and the drop passes, which I documented on the post-game show against Baylor just a few days ago. Check that out. Oklahoma needs to correct those problems if they're going to have a shot at upsetting Texas this Saturday. Number 2, Nebraska. The offense may not have looked crisp against Missouri, but the defense kept Nebraska in the game and helped win the game. And remember this name because he's going to be playing in the NFL on Sundays. Ndamukong Suh. This guy was the Big 12 defensive choice for preseason player of the year. Has not disappointed. Against Missouri, what did he do? Oh, not much. Just 6 tackles as well as a forced fumble. Had a quarterback sack, a deflected pass, and an interception in the fourth quarter. Ndamukong Suh, yeah, he was everywhere. You cannot block this guy one-on-one. And number 1, despite struggling against Colorado, they got the W. We're talking about Texas. Number 2 or number 3, depending on what poll you look at nationally. They're still undefeated, and they're still the team to beat in the Big 12. Could Oklahoma be that team to beat them? We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of Oklahoma, Texas, it is unquestionably the game of the week from the Big 12. As a matter of fact, it could be the game of the year in the Big 12. Should be a good one from Dallas. To get my full evaluation of the game, make sure to check out my pregame, the weekly matchup show of OU Texas. It's also on this same page. Texas Tech at Nebraska. This should be a good game as well. It'll also be broadcasted on ABC, and it's a 2:30 kickoff. What will win out? The pass-happy offense of Texas Tech, or will Nebraska's defensive four with Pierre Allen and Suh be able to pressure the quarterback, whomever it might be for Tech? I think Nebraska will give up some points, but playing at home, I think Tech, with that defense that I'm still not impressed with, I think Nebraska wins out. Remember, Nebraska should have won in Lubbock last year, but lost in overtime. I think Nebraska gets the revenge. Kansas at Colorado. I like the Jayhawks to win, and I'll probably say 10 to 14 points. Colorado simply had a horrible year. They've already lost 4 games, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better for the Buffaloes. They still have to play Nebraska. They still have to play at Oklahoma State. They still have Missouri on the schedule. For Colorado, it looks like they're on their way to a losing season. And Baylor at Oklahoma State. Yeah, line up to get your tickets for this one. You better, because this game's not going to be televised, much to all of our shocks. I think actually Iowa State's going to win this one. I'm going to pick the Cyclones, who are actually a slight favorite in this game. The weather in Ames, Iowa at this time of the year is not pretty. It's probably going to be cold and windy. Baylor got jacked up to play Oklahoma last week. I can't see them getting up to play Iowa State, at least not on the same level. I think the Cyclones in the ugly low-scoring game has enough to get past Baylor and to make sure that the Baylor Bears, again, don't go to a bowl game. They haven't been one since joining the Big 12. Texas A&M at Kansas State in what could be a coin flip game. I really don't know which way to go on this one. I'll go ahead and take A&M just because they looked a little bit better last week than I expected despite losing. Kansas State, nothing good you can say about that game at Texas Tech. They got embarrassed. I know K-State's playing at home, but A&M, I think, on the road will win the game. And then Missouri at Oklahoma State. This will be a night game, an 8 o'clock kick, televised on ESPN. Oklahoma State, despite the fact that they don't know if they'll have Dez Bryant for this game, despite the fact that Kendall Hunter may not play, I think offense will win out. And Missouri, their offense, not as impressive. The game's in Stillwater. I don't think Missouri is fully recovered from blowing that game against Nebraska. OSU showed a lot by winning despite being without several key players in that game at A&M. I think Oklahoma State wins this one at home. So there you have it. Those are my picks. I went 6-0 last week, as I'm sure most of you out there did. We'll see if I can have another perfect week as far as picking games. That's it for the Big 12 matchup and ranking show. Goodbye for now.